Good evening and welcome, everybody, to another edition or episode of She is Empowered, the interview series. I'm your host, Maxine Johns. We are talking about the amazing women that have featured in my book right here, She is Empowered, which was released back on the 8th of March this year. And I'm so proud of what it's doing and the rounds that it's making on a global scale. What I'm even more proud of is the women that are in this book. No doubt we've had quite a few amazing conversations in our past episodes, but I'm so excited to introduce this incredible woman. We've been friends, peers, sister friends, hip hop family, and just women doing our thing here in the hip hop community for so many years. I absolutely adore her, and I thank her for her time on the show. Welcome, Kween G. How are you, sister?
Good evening, sister. I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show. I just want to say I've, got my copy bedside ready.
Yay.
It's actually been in my children's room for a while, and I'll have to say a personal thank you for making these beautiful frames for us individually and take my unpainted nails away.
Listen, at least you have nails, honey. I don't take mine off. You're so welcome. It's such an honor to have you part of this book and always a part of my journey and the narrative that I share as not only a woman within the hip hop community here in Australia, but just on a global scale with everything that we all try to do. So a huge thank you to you for your time and for your presence. And whenever I ask you to be a part of something, you never say no. So thank you for that.
Have to. It's always a yes.
Absolutely. I know. How have you been? Like, how is everything going for you? No doubt with everything we're dealing with at the moment. How are you?
Yeah, besides that, look, I've had a bit of a moment of just stillness and reflection and, too much thinking. And, I'm someone who admits that I keep myself really busy and to avoid the real problems. And then when I'm left alone with my thoughts, it just goes, and it's not a negative thing. I think it's a positive for me because I need that. So I'm okay at the moment with, the solitude and the forced time to, reflect and, really just, do nothing as well. Like I said, I'm always busy, and I find that I do that to keep myself from the real issues or the real things that are happening around it. And so, dealing with my own internal healing has been really good during this time as well. But I'm also excited because I spent the last 12 months, writing new music and recording it and not really having a place or time to share it. And I can finally say it's finished. So that's something that I'm, excited about is, I've got some cool music coming out that, is very reflected, of all the things that are happening around us. But that's all I could do is just, write from the time, right from the document, what's happening historically. And it's not all negative too. It's very positive.
I have to concur with you in that. I think with, for a lot of us, especially, not only just artists or DJs, but just creators in general, every time a lockdown looms or there's moments of pause or isolation, people tend to immediately think, oh, the obvious, loss of income, that sort of financial stress and, businesses failing. And yes, that's a huge part of what we face. But when you look at what it is we need to continue to give and to continue to be the creators that we are, most often than not, at these times when we are having to have isolation, our cups are nearly always empty at that point. I know for myself, when everything happened here and we had to go into lockdown, I was literally dying for some moment of just nothingness. And I hated admitting it, but I absolutely needed to have that quiet time because I couldn't process anymore. Because like you, throwing yourself into projects and work to keep that going. It is a scary time for a lot of us, but it's also a time that we do need in order to fill that cup up. So
Okay.
it's almost like a, it's like a, you know, how can I say, it's a yin to a yang, really. You know, there's, for a lot of people who just rely on, you know, income, it's not, there's
Yeah.
no happiness with that. But at the
Mm,
same time too, you do feel that you need to just be quiet sometimes, and it's okay
exactly.
to feel
Yeah.
like
Uh, I'm fine. Yeah.
that.
I'm okay with this, lockdown's over,
Yeah.
we're gonna get back to back trying to work out what to do next. So let's just take what what it is and take it as it comes, and everything the way it happens is supposed to happen.
That's it.
You know.
Absolutely. And just one day at a time. And not only that, you know, you're also a mother as well. And you're raising two beautiful
Mm.
kids. Um, and you're a mum to a daughter as well. So I guess coming back to the full impact of being in a book called She is Empowered, how has being in the book, um, the perspective of being a mother of a daughter and then being in a book like this with all of these other empowering women. What was that process like for you when you were writing out your questions to the book and then eventually seeing it and possibly showing your daughter? How has that been for you?
The first reaction when I read it, I was like, did I write this? I actually had one of my sisters, Mel,
Mm,
she read it before I did that. Well, I will together, but
yeah.
she immediately grabbed it because she's all about women empowerment. And she was just excited, and she didn't realize I was in the book. And I'm like, oh, let's go look for my page. And we pulled it out, and she started reading it. So hearing her read back what I had responded to, it's like, because it had been a bit of time since I did that, I was just like, wow. I kept saying, is that really me? Is this, that was the first thoughts I had. I was just like, wow. But also, in terms of my daughter, she's very empowered already. Um, but I think what I got out of this, especially when I started to read the other stories, was there's nothing like this for us.
No.
There's nothing like this with this many stories, like real biographies, real truths from people that we have access to.
Yeah.
A lot of people in here I don't know, but a lot of people I do know, but I've learned so much about them because I actually didn't know them until I read about them,
Yeah.
and read about some of the things they've done, or how their reflections on certain things. And so our daughters need this because they need to be able to not always look to an international or look to, I guess, other women and other stories
Yeah.
that they can't access.
Yeah.
And that's what I had growing up. I looked to a lot of international influence, which is not a bad thing. It was one thing that helped me to survive this
Yeah.
upbringing here.
Yeah.
Was to be able to see myself through other women. And I think it's, for us melanated people across the globe, we really need to have some kind of something that we can relate to, especially when we are the one person in the room still. Our children still go to school,
Yeah.
and maybe they're the only African girl in the class, for example. Maybe there's them and another girl or another child. Still, that's little. Like, imagine how it feels knowing that you're in a classroom of people that
Yeah.
resemble you. Even though everyone has their own personalities, everybody's different. Not everyone's the same, but that's something that I haven't had an experience of until I went back to my motherlands, or until I traveled the
Mm.
globe and started to go around different places, and just to see how much I was missing
Yeah.
of that on a regular basis. And I think that's why we turn to the creative avenues that we turn to. But our daughters, the girls growing up now, really need something like this to turn to. Even if they don't see it now, they're going to look into the future and read these stories of all the women in this book, and know that they had this access to people who are from towns that they're close to, or cities that they know
Thank you.
about, things that they can relate to.
Thank
And I think that's why I really respect writers,
you.
journalists, and people who document written,
Yeah.
because there's a difference between speaking onto a
Thank you.
camera and just reading off a script.
Absolutely.
But actually writing it's a skill, it's a craft, it's a gift.
Yeah.
And it's the original form of history, of capturing history.
Yeah.
People used to draw the history, and just to have the writing, I think, is something that's always permanent. You can't
Yeah.
erase the print.
That's so true. And you couldn't have put it better, because that is exactly what the driver was for me. To say that it captures women that we have access to, that was what it was all about for me, Queen. Absolutely. I mean, this isn't the first book of its kind. Absolutely not. I have about two types of books like this that I had bought off, bookshelves, that I loved the concept of, but it was women I couldn't relate to. They didn't look like me, as you said, nothing, no melanated skin at all. It was women I couldn't and would probably never have access to. So even reading that, yeah, it's inspiring because why, you're a woman, but we're all different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of these books were written as if it was just a blanket format. So if anyone picks it up, you'll be automatically inspired by that. Well, no, I wasn't, because you've missed the mark. We'd mother differently. We raise our kids differently. We walk and, come from different backgrounds. So I actually, after I did this book and I went back and looked at those books that inspired me to do this one, I was offended by the initial two that I bought, because I thought there's nothing of me in that. And the only thing that I can relate to is that I'm a woman. And that was it. And I needed to do this for exactly the reasons that you've given. And you've captured it perfectly. So thank you. I do hope that it is something that becomes a historical sort of, piece for.
It's extremely
really
historical. It hasn't, I haven't read this before. Even one of the stories that moved me was Empress Camille. So if you're going to ask me a question about,
not at all, no,
any stories in particular, but she was someone who was a mentor to me.
Yeah.
And like I used to follow her around everywhere, and she just used to be so accommodating to me, welcoming, always made me feel welcome. I'd walk into places where I didn't know anyone, or I'd be in a room of people who are like of a particular level in their careers, and I just sat there and watched everything she did, and just looked at her, watched her, and I didn't realize she was mentoring me at the time. It was just like we were just hanging out, but I used to always go anywhere she's at, I'll make sure I'm there. And when she had left to move overseas, I felt like I had to not so much take that place, but I couldn't stop. I felt I had this obligation, because she had set a path.
Yeah.
She had set up a path, a full blueprint. She had put the blueprint out.
Yeah.
And I just was like, okay, she's not here. I have to do this, and I can't stop, because the way she hustled. Years later, I look back and go, I probably got that from hanging out with her. Just like the way she'd hustle and the way she'd, do, make things happen. And just always have a positive attitude, always up every day. She was never in a negative mood. I never saw her in a negative energy at all,
And she's still to this day, I mean, what she's achieved, living back in her homeland of Jamaica, and doing amazing things, and being there for her people, and she's a mother and a wife, and all these brilliant things. And it's funny, because we've all sort of met in that unified place of a nightclub at some stage. All of us have that sort of connection of being on the dance floor, meeting in a nightclub. And a lot of people have these negative connotations about, people meeting in clubs and stuff. But God, our sisterhood was birthed in these incredible hip hop, clubs and spaces where the unification was through music and through that respect. And just hearing you sort of speak about her, you have definitely taken up the spot where the respect and the inspiration that you give and deserve to be received is manifested by how you do what you do. The amount of times you've paid it forward for somebody like myself, even if I get a referral from someone, when Kween G mentioned your name in whatever room you're in, that just speaks multitudes to my soul, because that's why we do what we do.
Exactly. And it takes a lot to, and it takes a lot to do that, because we're not taught. I definitely know there was a time where women were taught to, like, compete against each other and, you know, be the only one and get that spot and all that. And I think it takes a lot to not come with that energy and just really want, you know, happiness for another sister.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. So in saying that then, what do you feel has been some of the most empowering moments that you've stepped in throughout your career? Because you've had a really, really great career thus far, and you are still redefining what your career is. You know, you obviously have your love for performing and your artistry and your hip hop rhyme, but then you've also got such a huge heart and a huge passion for youth advocacy and for speaking out for the Indigenous communities and Black and Brown communities and empowering women. So what do you think your journey in empowerment has been? What have some really empowering moments been for you in your journey so far?
The first thing I think about when you asked me that was I think of Saba Basefi. She's an Iranian woman who's a filmmaker, and I came across her. She invited me. She used to do these on International Women's Day every year. She'd put on these poetry festivals called Women Scream International Poetry Festival, and I was like, oh yeah, you know, just go along to that. And then I was just moved in this room, like she had all women from different parts of the world, you know, and the content that was being spoken about was stuff that especially at the time, I really became, you know, militant in, you know, anti-capitalism and, you know, feminism and, you know, all the things that, you know, I'm really into. I didn't know there was an outside place other than my friends and my circle. And so one of the first times I performed, and it was just me doing my hip hop, but with no beat. And I was just like, why am I here? You know, I was like, it's Auntie Jenny Monroe was there. You know, all these really prolific women I look up to are in the room, you know, who are like real big change maker bosses, you know, like don't mess around with us kind of thing, like Angela Davis, Black Panther era, but here in Sydney version. and I'm just, and I think that from that time, and you know, not hanging out because there's always a reason, there's always something that she'd invite me to. A lot of those moments with her have been extremely empowering, because if you hear her story and see what she's done, then you get to see that it's actually not that impossible. You know, it's not controversial to speak up. It's not controversial to stand up for injustice. I don't have the power. I don't work in this field. I'm not a politician, but I have words, I have poetry, I have lyrics. And, you know, if you look at the worlds that I'm, you know, in the room that I'm in when Saba puts these things on, there's no hip hop artists there, but there's people out there that respect hip hop. When they hear the right stuff, they understand that this is not just a commercial venture and a money-making thing. This is actually, you know, something that people can learn from. And so I think, you know, those moments for me, you know, it was just like I kept going, I kept, you know, feeling more open to share, feeling more open to do things, and also learning, again, looking at these women as mentors. They're all older than me. I'm always the youngest one because I always started, you know, all the things I do when I was young. So, you know, these women are, you know, well into their careers, you know, they're really, you know, busy, focused, driven, but the stuff that they're doing is not, they don't do it for the clout. They're not here to get fame. They're getting criticized, you know, they're getting put down. And I think that for me, being around Saba Fasefi, you know, she invited me to be on a film that she produced that's coming out this year as well. And it's about, you know, similar stuff that we're talking about here. But, you know, also sharing our stories. It's the first time I think I've shared my actual story, my personal life story of how I came to be here. And I think, that's just been a bit of a journey. So I think definitely the moments that I've had with Saba, within those poetry worlds, like one of the most memorable moments was Candy Royale, rest in peace. We recorded a song together called You're Racist. And around the time we put the song out, it was, you know, another poetry festival was happening, but this time at the Parliament House in New South Wales Parliament House. in Senator Marine Faruqi's room. And I
Wow.
was already performing there. Candy was already performing there. And I said to Candy, I asked Saba, I was like, look, here's a song that we've done, have a listen.
Mm.
Do you reckon it would be a good idea to perform it tonight? No, that's right. I sent her the song, had told her to listen. She goes, can you please perform it tonight? And I was like, no. Like, no. And she's like, no, I need you to perform this tonight.
Wow.
Can you ask Candy if you can you please, you have to perform this song.
What?
And the song is really in your face, like you're racist, and it's like
And it's at
directly
Parliament
no
House.
holding back, and it's Parliament.
Well, it
And
probably
everyone was
needed to
feeling it.
be.
Yeah, Marine Faruqi, Senator Marine came up to us after and, congratulated us. I'm like, but obviously fast forward now, I see that, and recently she invited me to perform at her International Women's Day breakfast that she hosts every year. And I was in awe. I was just like, Senator, I'm really into politics.
Yeah.
People who know me know that I follow
Absolutely.
politics, not just international, but here I know everything. I know who's who.
Yeah.
I'm really into it. And so obviously Senator Marine Faruqi is someone who, is a big game changer in Australian politics. And she invited me personally to come and perform as her guest performer during her breakfast. And I was just like, I don't have the words and the language. I didn't even finish high school. Like I dropped out, I left.
It's but it's what you're doing though, Queen. Like you may have just like the high school thing. People put so much emphasis on, even if you left in year 10 and you didn't do your HSC or whatever it is, the education and that life education, it's instilled, and I think that's what shines through now. Right? Necessary
and
now.
it's through hip hop. Yeah, like if a senator of the Greens, Marine Faruqi, who's very incredible, not just her and a lot of those women there, like if they can do that, then that tells me that it's not about the status quo. It's not about satisfying, having a straight line. Even people who are, very academic are able to accept and understand our narrative, that it doesn't always have to be perfect, that you can hear a different narrative and a different perspective and still, get inspired and have a different take on something. And so I think a lot of the women who were in that room felt they related to my content or understood it or liked it for a reason, because again, I'm spitting hip hop lyrics and flows and poetry, but it's very strong content, and it's, for me, it's a brave thing to do, because I can choose just to write party music and just do that and be on top charts, but it doesn't make me feel good. I think that's hard work. I think that's, for me, that will be hard work, trying to please masses or try and stay on something. And there's nothing wrong with that, but just for me personally, those are moments that I felt really empowered.
Yeah, those are major moments. I mean, those are some bucket list moments too for people. You like you said, you weren't even looking to perform. You were just happy to have your song in that, and you were asked to come on board. So people see you and they see the value in what you're doing. And that leads me to my next question, obviously, being lovers of hip hop and being women in hip hop, right? We go against the norm in terms of we don't fit into the stereotype of women in hip hop, or what people think women in hip hop are. Firstly, we're fully clothed in everything we do, right? DJ, I'm fully clothed, wonderful, whatever, mostly dressed in black, but that's just because I find it slimming. Secondly, as a woman that's spitting, rapping, doing her thing, your rhymes have reason, right? Like you've just said, you could do it for hella likes on Instagram. You could do it for the masses, but you choose to do it for purpose and for a reason. So the empowerment right there for the two of us lies in the way we choose to present ourselves in quite a toxic masculine environment still, right? Hip hop. But there are women in hip hop that are changing the game, and they have been over the years. It's coming more to light now, but do you think there's still that sort of like resurgence of the beauty and the flesh over the we're just doing it for a purpose, we do it for a reason. Do you think there's still that kind of battle?
Definitely, because it's always going to, so long as there's a commercial value to it, there's always going to be what sells. And it's usually, you know, certain people saying what's working and what's going to sell. But I think something that's different is where women are, is that we've reclaimed our bodies, we've reclaimed our self. And, you know, when we're the ones, especially when it comes to body image and not shaming our body, I think that's, you know, within the discourse, something that I've, you know, been able to learn myself about our bodies, and how we put it out there. It's like when we are putting it out there ourselves, or if when we are, you know, there's been a real reclaiming of that. But at the same time, I felt like that got co-opted somewhere, because it went from, this, reclaiming our bodies and no shaming, not shaming our bodies, and, you know, being proud of all our different flaws and, you know, all those things. I think there's been a lot of positives that have come out of that, but at the same time, it's still a very commercial, marketed industry that has been co-opted. You know, it's a culture, it's a lifestyle has been co-opted, and when you understand and know what that is, then you're able to navigate through it without having to, you know, worry about, for me anyway, I don't have to worry about trying to, you know, peel for a radio show or something, because I know it's all BS.
Yeah.
You know, I know that there's a lot of things that are set up in order for things to be the way they are. You know, so I think, yeah, definitely I think there's been a big shift for where women are at, and I think it's being conscious of our place and our time as well. But one thing I do think that is an issue is that there's still a lot of cultural appropriation, particularly here down in, you know, where we are, in the place of, you know, where we are. There's, you know, there's a lot of, it's really good, it's important for push for, you know, women to be in hip hop and stuff, but I've been coming across a lot of examples of cultural appropriation around how that looks like, you know, or even just, again, when we talk about, you know, women empowerment, having been out there, sometimes I think I've seen examples of where it's like, we're not just saying we want women, just put women there, like do it authentically.
That's it.
Be authentic about it. And I think that's something that is an example when she's empowered. This is an authentic example of how to love other sisters, how to be sistership, how to be sisterhood, you know, how to be allies with each other, how to support each other, how to not, want to backstab each other, how to not want to compete with each other and be competitive. It's a competitive world.
Yeah.
You know, of course, when I do something because I want it to be good, but I don't have that thought in my mind that it needs to be better than a particular person or it needs to be better than them.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like, I have to be good. It has to be dope. It has to be amazing, but not because it has to be amazing for it to be better than another.
Because you're trying to slight someone else. Exactly. It's not the vein that it's done. But I do agree with you on the cultural appropriation side of it, and just putting a woman in for a woman's sake. There are levels to this, and a lot of the time you can get slighted in that conversation as well. So I know exactly where you're going with it, and I think that is something that does have to be delved into a little bit more when we're talking about women in the hip hop community. And it is something that happens a lot here. Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, then in saying that, and you said it so rightly in terms of, you know, people being a lot more open to claiming different body shapes, and how we as women present ourselves. Obviously social media has a lot of power in how we present ourselves, and how if you're an entrepreneur and you're wanting to sell whatever it is, you can go and do that. And so many of these influencers are gaining that term empowered by it's
co-option.
That's
what I meant. You just said it. That's what I meant by even empowerment has been co-opted. You know, empowerment now means just do whatever you want and not think about it. You know, it's just like, no, that's not what we're saying. when we
And you
said
flick
empowerment.
through, I don't know if you, this happens to you, but in this something you sort of just mindlessly, you know, scrolling through your timeline, and you go, okay, well, I'm tired of seeing the photoshopped bikini body on a yacht going, I've worked X amount and I'm now here and you can do it too. Well, no, I can't. No, I don't really want to. I'm cool. I don't need to be laid out on something. But that makes you empowered. No, it doesn't. And you're putting that message out to younger girls to say, well, you need to do this,
Exactly.
this, and this to do this. That's the danger of that. And I think
Exactly, and it's destroying the mental health of
yeah,
our women who are coming up now, because you see it. I know that again, no judgment,
yeah,
no judgment,
none at all.
but things like even just body enhancement was always something that rich people do, but
Yeah,
now it's become like anyone can do it and anyone can access it. Like in the same place I can get my eyebrows waxed, I can get my lips Botox, and I can get
yeah,
my all these things. But again, that comes back to whose features are you trying to impersonate, whose features are you trying to enhance yourself to look like. The same people that I feel like, especially Black women throughout the centuries have always been given like we've had things taken and like used. It's like, we'll take the lips, we'll take the hair, we'll take the butt. Now it's all about the butt.
yeah,
Take the butt, we'll take all that, but we don't want you.
yeah,
We can put that on ourselves,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
we can
yeah,
put that on anyone
yeah,
can do it, and I
yeah.
think that's where like a lot of our messages and stuff gets co-opted, because even with the whole woke stuff, when that whole thing first started, I was like, yeah, I'm onto it, but now I do not want to hear that word, because even that's been co-opted.
And I love that word. And
Yeah,
it
I
was
really love that
lovely as
era
a,
of woke.
yeah, it was great as a writer, lightly pepper my, paragraphs with it. And now you feel like it almost takes on a tokenistic sort of
Yeah.
value, and it's just, it is exhausting at
And
times.
that's what we have to be careful with the social media. I think,
Yeah,
when you were just saying about the scrolling and stuff, it's like that's what the impact of this negative marketing is. It's actually false advertising. A lot of it is really false stuff that is, become the main driver for a lot of things. And so I think we have to just stay alert,
yeah,
stay up, not be distracted. Are we willing to delete? I've got a song that I've done on my recent work called Something in Your Eyes, that I've got a video for as well. And the last line in the song is, are you willing to delete the distractions? How far are we really willing to let go of
right.
these material possessions, all these things that we've become used to go back to square one, or to just be,
Yeah,
humans, be one-on-one contact, and
absolutely.
yeah, let's like to go deep like that and remove everything.
Absolutely. And it's like I say, it's necessary realness. These conversations, this music, this sort of, it has to happen, because what we're currently involved in, we're sifting through, we're constantly sifting through to find truth. And more often than not, the truth is always within us. But I think some people are so scared to face that they'll look outward instead of inward. And I think that's dangerous as well.
Yeah.
So, which then brings me to this question. I know we spoke a little bit about it before the interview started, but we're Black women who proudly represent our African culture, and we're living in a country that has its difficulty accepting culture, right? That we in a plain and simple format. It has its own history with distortedness of who owns what and what it really is, that is what the land is. So we live here and we're working in a industry, or we sort of connected in an industry that is still trying to find its roots here, as in hip hop. Okay, how are we still here all these years later in that industry with the voices we have? We've made a mark, right?
Yeah.
When you look back on that, and you look back on that journey, and you look back on where you've come from, your country, where our continent of Africa is going right now, and as Black women, have we come far? Have we succeeded, or is that just Smoke and mirrors.
Wow, that's a big question.
Huge, right?
And I'd love to say yes. I'd love to say yes. I would love to say yes, but I can't. I'd be lying if I said yes, you know, because I think where we're at in this discourse is, I think it's really important that we see Indigenous, First Nations, Black hip hop artists here who are being platformed and spotlighted here, because you know, for me, what that does for me makes me remember my own roots and go, hang on, I've got a place that I've come from as well. You know, I've got a whole ancestral lineage there, you know, and I think we have to always honor that. I think that's very important, that we honor our ancestry, our ancestors, not other people's ancestors, our own ancestry. And, you know, just looking, I think within the journey, yeah, it's been a different road, you know, but I think if First Nations Black hip hop artists from this nation are in the lead of this hip hop culture, because the content, it comes back to what people are hearing, the messages, we can relate to that. There's something there where we can, you know, hear that and understand that and be like, yeah, you know, but then what do we do with our messaging, and what do we do with our stories? You know, we have to, you know, just look at that line of where we've come from and not be confused or lost by it. This, again, this is my own personal you know, thoughts from it, but at the same time, that's why I keep doing what I'm doing, because I'm like, nah, it's not good enough yet. You know, it's not there yet, you know. But I think that's why she's empowered. For example, this book is planting seeds in many you know, future generations, you know. And I think I'm really hopeful for the current generation that we're at, because I feel like them having parents like ourselves who think like how we think, who don't have to run here to survive. You know, we have to also remember that our parents came here for different reasons. You know, we all have our own stories, but it was all about survival. You know, you're from South Africa. You know, South Africa has such a great you know, like the history of South Africa. You know, often the times people just look at the great things, you know, the wow things, but I'm just like, hang on a second, do you know why these people are so gifted? Do you know why you really like what you're seeing? Do you understand, not just as far as the early 90s, you know, like even up till now, you know, a lot of us are coming from countries where we can't even live in our own country. You know, and even if as much as we love to and want to, it'll be impossible, because they've left the colonial democratic system for us to, which is just there for corruption, really. That's why it's so corrupt, you know. And so we've got our own reasons why, you know, you know, it's changed. So like I said, our parents came to survive, and it was like, go get an education. Look, we're sick of these white men always trying to kill us. Can you just do as they told? Because right now you can, and you won't get killed. And so then we grow up, you know, with, you know, a little bit of this, but by the time we become older, we're empowered. We're like, hang on a second, we don't have to think like that. We don't have to do all that. And so then we have children, and then we tell our children from day dot, hey, you know, this is who you are, love yourself. We're telling our children different message than what we were given. And, you know, I think it's a generational, like the generations have changed, you know. And I think that's the best way I understand. I can respond to that, sorry, is that, you know, we shouldn't forget that, you know, we shouldn't forget what we've left behind, even if we can't do anything. You know, some of us are completely disconnected from our roots, to the point where it's like, we know where we're from, but we have no idea about the language. We don't know even the capital city. We don't know all these things. And it's like, that's why we're lost. We have to find it, you know. There's no excuse these days. There's Google, there's all these things. We don't need, even if we don't have a direct adult parent who can tell us things, you know. I've had to learn about myself, you know. I've had to really go back and learn about myself. I didn't get taught by any grandmother or, you know, auntie or something like that, you know, because all those people were somewhere while I was here. You know, and so I've had to, you know, go back in that journey and go home and find these people and risk my life and do all these things to understand who I am today, and you know, how I navigate and not be lost, you know. And I think we can get really lost when we don't know our roots.
Absolutely, we really can. And you know, you've said so much. There's so much power in what you've just said, especially about how we're raising our kids today. You know, I've got, you know, two boys. My husband's African American. I'm South African. It's two. The Black history right there is immense, and our boys will soak it all up, and they will be told, because we don't believe in ushering through their childhood with rose-colored glasses, because we're not living in a rose-colored glass world. I think a lot of the time for my parents, and I speak, you know, with the utmost of, you know, respect to them, and, you know, blessings to my late dad. You know, he loved South Africa until the day he died, and he was proud to be South African, but he knew that moving here and bringing me here as a young girl with my mum at the time, my sister was born here, was the best that he could do to secure my future, regardless of, you know, coming to a country that was so different in terms of, you know, again, like you said earlier, going to school where there weren't people that looked like me. They didn't sound like me. They didn't know at all this place of South Africa that I came from, only what they saw on the TV, or the negative stuff about the apartheid and all that sort of stuff. And I was made fun of all the time, and this, that, and the other. And it was difficult, but I saw what my parents did when I got to a point, and I thought, okay, I get it now, but I've never forgotten where I've come from. And I speak about it, and I wear it, and even everything that's happening now hurts my heart, because that's my birth country, that's my native land. So when I speak to my kids about it, you know, it's no holds barred, because they do have access to the internet. They can see things, and I'd rather them hear it from me, and I'd rather them hear it from their dad, what it's like to be a Black man in the US, and some of the images that we see. Yeah, we try to shelter our kids, but they have access. So I think we have to empower them, and we have to,
with the truth.
You have to. You can't do it any other way. But it's interesting, though, that the boys, I mean, obviously, you know, my kids have got, you know, with the 12-year-old and the 4-year-old, they identify real quick with the American side, but mum comes in going, oh, no. The real side, that real power, you have to, is, you know, you have to understand how powerful your South African ancestry is. We might not have, you know, the NBA, but we have the real basketball playing Maasai warriors, right? Like, let's just put ourselves right out there. So it's just trying to give them that sort of balance, but they know where they come from, and they'll never forget it. So
yeah, and I think that's what helped us being here, is like, that's why we're also able to connect to Black American culture, because that's African people. Like, they, as you know, as much as that's something I've had to come across later in my life, at the time I was just like, that's the closest thing I'm gonna get to anything that's, you know, remotely something. And it's like, you can't take that away. And I think that's why we connect. And I think that's what had been so, I guess, disempowering or disfiguring, you know, when you are trying to be a hip hop artist here, and you're Black, you're African, but you're not being taken seriously. And it's like, hang on a second, we're the closest thing to these people. Like, can you, you know? And so it's really nice now, though, because a lot of this new generation are really owning a lot of things about themselves, you know, and about who they are, especially even about the Africanness, you know, looking to that first before trying to, you know, go and imitate Black American culture. They, you know, it's like they're growing up going, yeah, I'm proud, you know, this is who I am, you know, because again, we haven't had positive stories about ourselves to look at. So it's been hard for us to go, well, that's positive, that's entertaining, you know, I'm just going to stick with that, because, you know, that's not embarrassing. Where, you know, when we come from Africa, the narratives we grew up watching was nothing empowering, you know, and so you often grow up with this identity confusion going, is this all we are? We're just poor? Or is that it? And it's like, no, we're actually not. We're, you know, we have the greatest history in the world. And so that's, I think, why it's such an important thing to have, you know, like, while we're here in this part of the world, to be able to somehow identify, connect to, you know, the Indigenous First Nations people of these nations, because, you know, we have to start now learning the actual proper names of places as well, and not just refer to people as being First Nations or just Indigenous, you know, like there's, you're South African, I'm Ugandan, like that kind of flex, you know. I think that's really, I think that's empowering in itself to be able to, you know, be able to live through a time like that.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And I never thought that I'd see the day where, you know, that would be up for discussion. And I never thought I'd see the day too where we're talking about more than just, you know, obviously with Australia Day, and that, you know, the sort of tokenistic question thrown around about changing the flag at one point, and then you know, raising the Aboriginal flag next to the, well, it should have never even have been a discussion. That's it. That's what it should always be, is together. But then the changing of the date, you know, and that I thought at one stage was just going to be a fleeting conversation, and it's a narrative now, and it's a growing one, and it's going up in levels, and the younger generation are wanting answers as to, well, why is this a problem? Why shouldn't it be changed? Because it's not really a day of celebration for the people who it happened to. So, you know, and I love the fact that no matter how uncomfortable it is, it has to happen. It's necessary realness that conversation has to happen. So we are living in a time where, you know, things are quite tumultuous around the world. But it's action. It's change agents, right? It's
exactly. And it's happened like as is, you know. You just reminded me about that January 26th thing. I live in Marrickville, and that date doesn't even exist here anymore. Nothing happens. It's cancelled. No firework, no ceremony, nothing. It's the mayor of this area has said, you know, on January 26th, we are not spending this day doing this. If you want, go to Yarbin. If you want to do something, go to Yarbin. Otherwise, we don't have anything for you.
Marrickville,
you know, that's a big saving. Imagine how much money.
You know, but Marrickville really is. It's one of those pockets of suburbs in Sydney that just, again, I'm going to use the term, it's a change agent suburb. There's so much that happens in Marrickville, and it's huge things, huge changing moments, and to say that, like, that's literally removing yourself from the rest of the city, that, you know, people are flying the flag and they're doing the fireworks, and here's Marrickville, lights up.
It's cancelled. Not on. And more parks. It's another day. Walk your dog, guys.
That's it.
It's closed.
That's it. Well, you know what? I think the more the conversation happens, I think a lot more, you know, things will happen around it. But I want to say thank you to you for this conversation. It's been brilliant. It's exactly what I wanted and what I knew I would get from conversing with you. But again, just to say thank you for being such an incredible flag bearer for empowered women and empowerment, because you always have been for as long as I've known you. It's stamped across you, and you really do walk in your truth and your authenticity every day, and that's what it is to me. That's what empowerment is. So thank you, Queen.
Thank you, sister. That really means a lot, especially right now. I haven't been feeling very personally empowered, and I think doing this interview tonight has been really important for me, just to be reminded that, hey, don't stop now.
Don't you dare.
Got a long way to go.
Don't you dare.
You know, and a lot of young girls got to read this book.
I'm telling you, they're going to read.
Let me get a frame.
They're going to learn. They got to do. They really have, you know, big shoes to fill. But thank you so much. And you know what? I know you're working on great music. You're always doing amazing things. But thank you.
Yes. Can I just shout out
please.
Can I just shout out Lady Lash, Siza Kakotha, a Greek woman from Nam, and we collaborated recently on a song called Love for My Sisters, and it's dedicated to your writings, to your work, to you, and everybody in it, basically. And it's coming out on the 6th of August, and I'd love if everyone can support it, because, you know, a lot of things had to happen for this to happen. And I think it's really important, you know, for us to be seen together. And thank you for having me. Big love.
Congratulations, honey. Always love your work, and we'll definitely be promoting that and supporting it. So we love you, and thank you so much. And don't stop creating. Don't stop being purposeful and doing what you do.
Thank you. Much love, sister.
Thanks, Queen.